is a 5-star Cryo DPS unit with the ability to deal high damage within a short amount of time, allowing her to be a great on-field and quick-swap DPS. The question which remains is if she is actually worth pulling for your roster. Before You Wish is a video series dedicated to noting the good, bad, and ugly of characters in Genshin Impact. Many aspects of a unit are not apparent to the average Genshin player even after playing them in the trials, due to the inaccurate testing environment that can make characters seem better than they truly are. Explicitly noting the pros and cons of these characters in full detail should inform you about how to push them to their highest potential and what it costs to do so. As always, if you enjoy a character for reasons like their voice actor, aesthetic, or personality, these videos are by no means meant to stop you from spending your Primogems. Instead, they should prepare you for the type of problems that you'll need to solve or work around to meet your gameplay expectations. Without further ado, let us begin. Ayaka has a simple game plan, infusing herself with Cryo for constant damage, then unleashing everything with her Elemental Burst. Despite having a huge damage output, the damage is separated into smaller numbers, which means Ayaka won't be a very proficient, amplified reaction damage dealer. Ayaka's normal attack is a 5 rapid strike combo with a finisher that slashes through enemies. Her charge attack is a triple slash damage with a large detection range, even hitting elevated enemies from Venti's burst. Any enemies caught in her detection AoE guarantees receiving damage, even if they move out of the way. Ayaka's dash, Senho, is a special dash where she submerges into the surface as a cryo fog and moves at a fast speed. Upon resurfacing, Ayaka infuses her normal and charged attack with cryo, as well as applying cryo to enemies nearby. This means Ayaka must input a dash between combos for maximum cryo damage. Her later Ascension passive allows Ayaka to gain a small bit of stamina and bonus cryo damage at the end of her dash when successfully applied. Ayaka's elemental skill, Kamisato Art, Hyoka, is a single AoE cryo damage instance which can also launch opponents. Ayaka's skill has an extra layer upon unlocking her first passive, which, upon casting Hyoka, Ayaka's normal and charge attacks gain a damage boost. Ayaka's Elemental Burst, Kamisato Art, Soumetsu, is the most important part of her kit. She will send a snowstorm in a straight direction, dealing continuous cryo slicing damage with a final cryo explosion. Her burst has decent range and will halt in position when hitting heavy enemies until they are killed or moved away. Ayaka's burst will frequently be her largest source of damage, which makes hitting every part of it vital to her damage output. Ayaka's passive and active skills clearly work around each other to add a significant amount of damage to her auto attacks and burst. Since her end goal is to deal a lot of damage with her burst, she can be played as an on-field DPS or a quick swap unit. Her elemental skill creates 4 to 5 energy particles, can also make her a decent battery on top of being a good quick swap DPS. However, Ayaka's kit has a few glaring issues. First of all, her elemental skill has a 10-second cooldown, which is quite long and can only be remedied by her first constellation that cuts down her cooldown slightly. In addition, despite her unique dash being fixed for 2.0, it still gives her some movement limitation on elevated grounds. Finally, and the most devastating out of all, Ayaka cannot afford to miss her burst. Since bursts are auto-aimed by the system, Ayaka needs to position herself or crowd the enemies together to avoid poor use of her burst. If she misses, Ayaka will have to work towards gaining back her burst while losing very valuable damage opportunities. Regarding Ayaka's team compositions, she excels greatly in a perma-freeze comp. Permafreeze makes sure that enemies are locked on spot, lowering the odds for Ayaka to miss her burst. Permafreeze comps also allows Ayaka to make great use of her Poor Feast Lizard Strayer set, which allows her to invest in critical damage since her critical rate is sourced from freezing her enemies. However, Ayaka falls short on amplified reaction comps, especially Melt. As stated previously, Ayaka's damage is spread out across a lot of small instances of damage, meaning reaction damage won't be scaled as much as you would expect. Taking internal cooldowns into account, Ayaka's charge attack is split into 3 hits, and burst is split into 20 hits total. The internal cooldowns will only make Ayaka react once on a charge attack and around 4 times on her burst, which does not make up for majority of her damage. Therefore, Ayaka won't benefit greatly from a melt composition. Ayaka's constellations revolve around increasing her flexibility. Her Constellation 1 can be underwhelming as its effects on her elemental skills cooldown can be hard to notice. Her second constellation is powerful in situations where Ayaka's extra elemental bursts can get caught on enemies and is a nice damage boost. Her fourth constellation, which decreases enemy defense, both increases Ayaka personal damage and her team's damage. While her sixth constellation is Lackluster, because her damage stems primarily from her burst, not her charge attacks. Compared to other cryo DPS units, Ayaka is a very strong cryo unit and is able to provide reliable cryo application even without her skill and burst. She is able to deal slightly less damage than Eula, but is able to switch in and out while dealing cryo damage. Ayaka is a better choice than Kaya in freeze teams, as she isn't tied to Chongyun and deals much more damage with her burst at the cost of lower energy generation. Ayaka is also frequently compared to Ganyu. The main difference between the two is Ganyu deals consistent damage over multiple charge shots, while Ayaka deals the majority of her damage in a short 5-second burst. Generally, Ganyu will still be a more effective DPS unit, but Ayaka's speedrun and burst capabilities are not to be underestimated. Overall, you can roll for Kamisato Ayaka if you want a cryo DPS unit who is able to dish out huge bursts of damage in a permafreeze team. Whether as an on-field or quick swap role, Ayaka provides the opportunity to focus her damage on priority targets and lock down enemies with her cryo application. Her energy generation can even allow her to function as a decent battery, both for herself and for other cryo units. However, you shouldn't roll for Ayaka if you are not a fan of her heavy reliance on freeze and elemental burst. Despite the change to make it less annoying, Ayaka's dash can still be very difficult to play with and should be taken into consideration. Furthermore, if you don't have many hydro units available, such as Saintcho and Mona, it can be difficult finding teams for Ayaka to fit in. Thanks for watching this quick overview of the Keqing Vein's theory crafting staff's initial thoughts on Ayaka. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will do our best to answer.